There are victories that serve to earn 3 points, and there are victories that serve to completely change the mood around a national team. What Portugal did today against Uzbekistan clearly falls into the second category, because after a debut that had left doubts, questions, and a certain discomfort, Roberto Martinez's team needed a strong night. It needed a response. It needed to win, yes, but it also needed to convince, and it did so emphatically. 5-0, absolute authority, and a performance that puts Portugal back on the big map of this World Cup. The match began with a very clear feeling. Portugal did not want to wait. It did not want to repeat the irregular version it had shown in its first match, when the draw against the Democratic Republic of the Congo had opened debates about the team's performance, about its lack of depth, and, of course, about Cristiano Ronaldo's role. This time, from the opening minutes, Portugal came out with a different energy, more aggressive, more determined, more direct, as if it understood that it was not only playing against Uzbekistan, but also against the noise that had built up after the debut. And very quickly, Cristiano Ronaldo took it upon himself to send the first message. Because when people talk about Cristiano, it often seems like everything always comes back to the same point: age, relevance, the ability to keep competing at the highest level. But he has spent more than 20 years responding the same way, in the box, with goals, with presence, with that mentality that people may like more or less, but that remains impossible to deny. Portugal found the breakthrough early, and from that point on, the match began to tilt very clearly. Uzbekistan tried to hold on, tried to close down spaces, tried not to get split apart, but the difference in hierarchy was too great. Portugal moved the ball with patience, but also with intent. It was not empty possession. Every circulation had a direction. Every attack seemed to look for an advantage. And when the team found space, the sense of danger was constant. One of the keys was that Portugal did not depend only on Cristiano. That was probably one of the most important aspects of the rout. Because yes, Cristiano was the protagonist. Yes, he scored again. Yes, he became worldwide news again. But Portugal also showed more resources around him. Nuno Mendes was deep, intense, important in attack, and solid when he had to track back. Rafa Leão, with his ability to unbalance defenders, gave the team a different energy. The midfielders managed to sustain the pressure better and connect with more clarity. And the defense played much more comfortably, precisely because Portugal defended farther away from its own goal. That was a huge difference compared to the first match. Against Congo, Portugal had left the feeling of being a team with important names, but without fully finding continuity. Today, on the other hand, we saw a much more compact national team, more connected, more certain of what it wanted to do. And when a team with Portugal's talent starts playing with confidence, matches can break open very quickly. The 5-0 was not only a wide scoreline, it was a statement. It was Portugal saying that it is still in the race, that it still has hierarchy, that it can still be one of the dangerous national teams in this tournament. Because one thing is to win while suffering, with doubts, with the opponent pushing until the end. And another very different thing is to win with authority, recover sensations, and turn a night of pressure into a night of affirmation. For Cristiano Ronaldo, the match also carried special weight. It was not just any night. He was coming off criticism, he was coming off a debut without the expected shine, and he was coming, as always, from being watched through a magnifying glass much larger than any other players. Every Cristiano movement is analyzed, every gesture is commented on, every match becomes a judgment on his present. And that is why his goals today were not just goals. They were a response. Cristiano celebrated again with that force that is so his, with that mix of rage, pride, and relief that has accompanied him for years. Because even though he has won everything, even though he has broken records that seemed impossible, even though his career is already in a place reserved for very few, he keeps competing as if he still needed to prove something. And maybe that is one of the reasons he is still there. Because Cristiano has never played only against his opponents. Cristiano also plays against time, against doubt, against criticism, and against the idea that one day he has to stop being important. Today, once again, he refused to accept that idea. Portugal routed its opponent, Cristiano scored, and the world started talking about him again. But after the match, the news did not remain only in the result. Because when Cristiano Ronaldo stood in front of the microphones, he left a phrase that immediately lit up the imagination of every soccer fan. Asked about what could happen later in the World Cup and about the possibility of crossing paths with Argentina, Cristiano was direct. "I would love to face Messi in a World Cup. It would be a special match, not only for us, but for everyone who loves this sport," Cristiano Ronaldo said. And then, all of a sudden, Portugal's 5-0 began to take on another meaning, because it was no longer only about a group stage rout. It was no longer only about a reaction after a debut full of doubts. That phrase from Cristiano opened a gigantic emotional door, the door to a possible final great chapter between the two footballers who marked an entire era, Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi. Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. It does not matter in which order you say it. For almost 20 years, soccer revolved around those two names. There was no comparison more repeated, more discussed, more intense, or more universal. Every season seemed to have a new episode, a Cristiano record, a Messi masterpiece, a Ballon d'Or, a Champions League, a Clásico, an impossible night in Europe, a free-kick goal, a hat-trick, a final, an elimination, a response. The rivalry between the two was not a normal rivalry. It was a rivalry that divided generations, countries, locker rooms, bar conversations, social media, and television programs. For some, Messi was always the purest talent, the player who seemed to have been born with an understanding of the game that no one could teach. For others, Cristiano was always the ultimate example of ambition, work, mentality, and the ability to reinvent himself. One represented naturalness taken to the extreme. The other, willpower pushed to the limit. And maybe that is why it worked so well. Because they were not the same. Because they were never the same. Messi did not need to resemble Cristiano, and Cristiano did not need to resemble Messi. One dominated through pauses, close control, vision, and that almost silent way of destroying defenses. The other dominated through power, the box, the leap, the finish, and a stage presence that turned every match into an event. Two different paths toward the same discussion. Who was the greatest of his time? But there is something that makes this possible World Cup meeting even more special, and that is that at national team level, we never had that definitive great clash between the two in a World Cup. We saw them face each other many times at club level. We saw them compete for titles, awards, and records. We saw them push Barcelona and Real Madrid to the limit in one of the most memorable eras in soccer history. But Messi against Cristiano in a World Cup would be something else. It would be a different stage. It would be a historic image. It would be one of those nights that does not need much explanation to understand its size. That is why Cristiano's statement carried so much force. Because he did not simply say that Portugal wants to go far. He did not only say that he is focused on his team. He said he would love to face Messi in a World Cup. And when Cristiano says that, he knows exactly what it provokes. He knows the world listens. He knows the fans react. He knows that phrase begins to build enormous expectation. It would be beautiful to experience that duel again on a stage like the World Cup. Messi and I have marked an era, and facing each other there would be something soccer would remember, Cristiano added. And he also knows that Messi is on the other side, doing his thing. Argentina has been showing authority, Messi remains decisive, and the world champion still gives off the feeling of being a mature, solid team that is very difficult to face. The possibility of Portugal against Argentina would not only be a battle between two national teams with aspirations, it would be a collision between two gigantic stories. For Cristiano, facing Messi in a World Cup would probably be one of the most symbolic challenges of his career. Not because he needs to prove he can compete with him, he already did that for almost 2 decades, but because the World Cup carries a different weight. It is the stage where careers become eternal in another way. It is the tournament that does not forgive, the tournament that does not wait, the tournament where one night can change the way a player is remembered forever. Messi has already experienced his ultimate coronation with Argentina. He has already lifted the World Cup. He has already broken through that barrier that was used for years as an argument against him. Cristiano, on the other hand, is still chasing that dream with Portugal. And that also adds tension to the story. Because for Messi, this World Cup can be an extension of his legend. For Cristiano, it may be the final opportunity to touch the only trophy missing from his collection. That is where the fire of this rivalry lies. There is no need to invent it too much. It is in the history, it is in the numbers, it is in the memories, it is in all those years in which one forced the other to be better. Because that is one of the great truths of Messi and Cristiano. They pushed each other toward heights that perhaps no one would have reached alone. Every record by one seemed to demand a response from the other. Every extraordinary Messi season forced Cristiano to produce another absurd season. Every epic Cristiano night made Messi remind the world again that his soccer belonged to another dimension. And now, when many thought that rivalry already belonged to the past, the World Cup opens up a possibility again. We do not know if it will happen. We do not know if Portugal and Argentina will cross paths. We do not know if the bracket, the results, and destiny will allow that match. But the possibility alone is enough to ignite the conversation. Because there are matches that are imagined before they exist. There are matches that soccer asks for, and this would be one of them. Cristiano against Messi, once again, but no longer on a Spanish League night, or in a Champions League semifinal, or at an awards gala, or in an eternal statistical debate. It would be in a World Cup, with two national team jerseys, with two countries behind them, with millions of people watching, and with the feeling that time finally could give this rivalry the stage it is still missing. Portugal did what it had to do. It won 5-0, recovered confidence, showed a much stronger version, and put Cristiano back at the center of the scene. Roberto Martinez's team needed a night like this, and it got it. But Cristiano went further, because after scoring, after responding on the field, he also lit up the story off the field. He said he would love to face Messi in a World Cup, and with that phrase, the tournament gained one more story. Because if that match happens, it will not be just any clash. It will be Portugal against Argentina, yes. It will be Cristiano against Messi too. But above all, it will be one final great image of a rivalry that defined an entire era. Two legends, two jerseys, two paths, one same stage. And maybe, just maybe, soccer still owes us that night.